Hi everyone, this is Gary with MACMOST.com, and today let's dig into some questions that people have about Apple Creator Studio. Okay, so Apple Creator Studio, of course, is what everybody in the Apple world's been talking about for the last week or so. It's Apple's new subscription service, software subscription service. And it can be kind of confusing in a lot of different respects. It's a really interesting offering, and it's Apple's first real software subscription offering, although they've delved into this before. So let's take a look here, and I'm just going to go through some questions. So the first big thing is, what is included in this software subscription? What apps do you get? And you may think by looking at Apple's materials like this, that it's 10 apps, but it's actually not really 10 apps. It's actually only 6 apps. So it's just the apps Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Pixelmator Pro, then Motion Compressor and Main Stage. Final Cut Pro, of course, is the big video editing tool that Apple provides. People use it to, just create personal projects, but also things like actual films, commercials, lots and lots of stuff for TV. Compressor and Motion are two tools that go along with that. These are not new. These have been around for a long time. Logic Pro is music creation and audio editing tool, and MainStage is a thing that kind of fits in with that, and it's for live productions of audio. And those 5 apps, plus Pixelmator Pro, which Apple acquired last year, and is basically an image editing tool, graphics tool. Those are what you get with Apple Creator Studio when you get the subscription. And it's important to note that those were never free. Those have always been one-time purchases up till now. And now you've got still one-time purchases, but also a subscription option that gets you all 6 of those. Now, what about the other 4 apps? Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, and Freeform. So those apps were free before. They weren't always free. They used to cost something, but for a long time now they've been free, and those apps are still free. So they're not really a part of the subscription. They are now included here because there are extra features that you get when you have a subscription. I think Apple kind of confused things by putting all these icons up here just together with each other to make it seem like Pages, Numbers, and Keynote and Freeform are part of this. They should have included them off to the side saying like additional content or something like that. But that's what's included. So the next question is, what are the new features of the apps, the ones that are still free? Pages, Numbers, Keynote, and Freeform. Like, what do you get with an Apple Creator Studio subscription that you don't get if you don't have a subscription? And what it comes down to is we only know for Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. I'll deal with Freeform later. Pages, Numbers, and Keynote all have premium templates that you get. That's one thing. There's something called Content Hub, which is basically stock photography and stock illustrations that you can get. They're all 3 apps have it, and it all works the same for those. There's also AI image generation and alteration. So you could take Content Hub images or your own images and basically through an AI interface say, add a sailboat in the middle of the lake, that kind of thing. And it will generate an AI image for you or create one from scratch. With Keynote, you get a few extra features, a whole bunch of AI related features. You can generate an entire presentation from basically a list, describe it in a list. And it doesn't generate it like you could use it right away afterwards, although I suppose you could in some cases, but it gets you started. You can generate presenter notes, and you also can do this cleanup thing, which will take your slide and make everything kind of like fit in nicely. So you can kind of be sloppy with how you place stuff on slides now and use this tool to do it. And those are new AI features that you only get if you have a subscription. If you don't have a subscription, you simply can't use those features. Numbers has one too called Magic Fill, which it will take text from one cell and kind of figure out what you might want in another cell. And it's just a small little AI related feature. But you don't, if you don't need any of those, then there's no point getting the Apple Creator Studio subscription for those apps. But big question people have that really, comes from including all this stuff here is that can you still use pages numbers in Keynote without a subscription? And the answer is completely, totally yes. You can use these three apps just as you did before. There are new versions of them that you should get. And those new versions will feature links and menu items that go to the Apple Creator Studio subscription features, but you don't need to use those. And if you do, it'll say, oh, you need to subscribe for these. But everything that was there before, everything you could do with pages, numbers, and Keynote before, you can still do for free. You don't need a subscription. Okay, so on to so you get 6 apps that you had to pay for standalone before. You get extra features for 4 apps. What does it cost? So Apple's got on this page here at apple.com/creator dash or apple-creator-studio, you get 2 different price tiers. One is $12.99 a month or $129 a year. That's not a mistake. $129 per year. I realize $12.99 multiplied by 12 isn't $129. That's like the discount for getting a year subscription. Students and educators, it's $3 a month or $30 a year. Again, a discount for the annual subscription. So super cheap for students and educators. There is a 1 month free trial. So when you sign up for this, you get 1 month free. Also, if you buy a new Mac or iPad, you get 3 months free of the subscription, which is kind of similar to Apple's done a lot of stuff like Apple TV subscriptions and stuff, Apple Arcade. You get like when you buy a new device, it kind of gives you some free time on those subscriptions and stuff. So the prices are pretty in line with things like Microsoft Office or Canva, much cheaper than what like Adobe subscription would get you, but Adobe's got like a ton of apps in their subscription. But yeah, that's what the prices are. So another deal going on is the fact that you've got 2 apps now. And this is confusing for a lot of people, and it's been a big question. So if I look now, if I've gone into the App Store and I've downloaded new Pages, new Numbers, new Keynote, what you end up with is 2 versions of Pages and 2 versions of Numbers and 2 versions of Keynote. So why is that? And this is kind of like a hard thing for Apple because what they're trying to do here is be nice. They're trying to say, look, if you're used to using Numbers, Pages, and Keynote like they are now, we have new versions. It changes how they look. So what we're going to do is we'll let you keep the older versions, at least for a while. Matter of fact, they updated the older versions to versions 14.5 of all 3 of those. And you keep them, and then you have the new version as well. So a lot of people are saying, well, why is Apple doing that? Well, if they didn't do it, you'd have a different set of people saying, well, they changed everything in Numbers and I wanted to stick with the old version. So Apple's saying, yeah, you can stick with the old version, at least for a while, and trying to do that. But then in return, they get people saying, well, why do I have 2 versions now? You don't need 2 versions. You can get rid of the old version of like Numbers, Pages, and Keynote and just use the new versions. The new versions without a subscription have the same features as the old versions, just you have the newer version and the newer look to the app itself. So that's what's going on there. Apple's probably is trying to be diplomatic and nice, but they are now getting questions on the other end. Why are there 2 versions? And you don't need 2 versions if you don't want it. I'll talk about what I suggest to do, though, with that in a few minutes. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about it right now because another question I get is, should you delete the old apps? And actually, if you run the old app, I'll run Numbers here. It says Numbers 14.5 is out of date and can be deleted. So here's what I suggest you do. Don't delete it. It's not a big deal. Like, look, Numbers is 623 megs. It's not even a gig in size. Pages similar too. So don't delete it. Apple's given this to us because, if you're not used to the new version of Pages, if you want to take some time to adjust, keep using Pages, Numbers, and Keynote like they are now, explore the new ones when you have time. Or since there are major new versions without any public beta, perhaps there might be something that doesn't work in the new versions. I haven't run into anything yet. I haven't heard anything yet except for some false alarms. And so I don't think that maybe that's not the case. But Apple did basically do the right thing from a software development standpoint and say you can have both versions there. So take advantage of that. Leave them in place for now. If you did get rid of them, if you did follow this advice and get rid of them, then that's fine too. It probably won't be a problem, right? But keep them around. Maybe a few months from now, you'll feel like you can get rid of them. Now, a lot of people are asking this question, this big question here. I got the new version of Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, and now there are ads in them. People are using that term a lot. Ads, advertisements, there are ads in them. Apple's putting ads in them. If you don't subscribe, you get ads. That's so not true because there's a misunderstanding of what ads are. And the thing is, people using the term ads are really, they are basically being like, I don't like this. I'm going to call it the most derogatory thing I can think of. Here's what they're talking about. I've taken some screenshots because this account here has Apple Creator Studio. I have a different user account that is hooked into a different iCloud account that doesn't have it. And this is what I get when I run Pages and I go to choose a template. And this is what people are talking about. You get your templates, the regular templates, the ones you had before. You don't lose any templates. But at the top here, it says, elevate your documents, unlock premium templates with Apple Creator Studio. And it shows you some samples here. And then also, if you go through the templates, you'll see the premium ones. And if you try to click on one, you'll get you need to get Apple Creator Studio for this. Here is choose a theme in Keynote. And you can see it says elevate your presentations, unlock premium, etc. Choose a template in Numbers, elevate your spreadsheets, etc. So you get that. In addition, if you try to use a feature like, say, Content Hub in an app like Pages, and you can't use it because you don't have a subscription, it'll give you a screen like this, which I guess the alternative is to say, you can't use it, sorry, bye. And at least it's telling you, it's explaining what the deal is. You need to subscribe and all that. So I would call these promos. So there's a big difference between a promo and an advertisement. An advertisement would be a third party, right? You're not going into Pages, Numbers, and Keynote and seeing ads for like nutritional supplements. Apple isn't selling ad space in these apps for people that don't have a subscription. That's not true at all. But people are like to say that to get everybody alarmed. That's not what's happening. This is like a promo. This is the same thing as if you walk into a restaurant and they have a board there that shows like today's specials. They're promoting today's specials, but it's not an paid advertisement. It's the restaurant promoting its own stuff, just like Pages is promoting its own stuff. So a big difference between a promo saying you can get Apple Creator Studio here and it adds stuff to Pages, and an ad, which is like third parties being able to buy advertisements and hit you with like sales on like cars and gadgets and stuff inside the apps. That's not what's happening. If you want to call it an ad, fine, but most of the people calling it an ad now are doing it because they don't like it and they want to get other people, riled up and stuff. So yeah, so no ads, just promos. So another question is, are there still standalone versions of the other apps? So let's go back here to the page here where shows the apps. Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Pixelmator Pro, Main Stage, Compressor, and Motion all still have standalone versions. You can buy each one individually. Final Cut Pro was available before for $300. It's still available for $300. Logic Pro, I think, it's $200, still available for $200. Motion, Compressor, Main Stage, $50, still available, $50. Pixelmator Pro, still available. It's a standalone app for $50. So nothing has been changed as far as the standalone versions of these. They were available standalone purchases before. They are still available as standalone purchases, but now they're also available as part of the subscription. Pages, Numbers, Keynote, Freeform, free before, still available free. It's just those extra features. Um, so what about the, let's see, should you move to the subscription version of the big apps? So here's the thing. People have been asking me this a lot. You get, like, you have Final Cut Pro already, and you paid $300 for it maybe 3 months ago, maybe 10 years ago, like I did. Should you now start paying for Apple Creator Studio? So it depends. Let's take a situation where Final Cut Pro is the really one and only app that you use. Maybe you use Motion and Compressor with them and you bought those as well. You've got those apps, you paid for them a long time ago. Now Apple Creator Studio comes out. Should you get the subscription? And the answer is probably not. If you don't need anything else from Apple Creator Studio, the new version of Final Cut Pro and the other apps already has like all the new features. Like Apple upgraded Final Cut Pro, the standalone version, with all the same features that that Final Cut Pro, the subscription version, gets you. There isn't anything new behind the wall, with one exception I'll get to in a minute. And Final Cut Pro is, if you've got it already and you're using it, everything's fine. You don't need the subscription. Will that change in the future? We don't know. But you don't need to do anything now. It's a subscription. There's no like limited time offer, like you need to subscribe now or you can't subscribe in the future. If you've got everything and you're good now, keep using it. If 6 months from now there is some reason, or you decide you want the subscription for some other feature, then you could subscribe. But if you have no other reason to subscribe, there is no reason to get the subscription now if you already own the apps. The one uh, exception to that is Pixelmator Pro. The standalone version of Pixelmator Pro is different than the subscription version in one feature, the new feature called Warp. Warp, which also has all these mock-ups that you could use, that is only in the subscription version. I don't know why Apple's doing that with Pixelmator Pro in particular, but they're not doing it with Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro. But yeah, there is one new thing, and if you need that, you need the Apple Creator Studio subscription. If you don't need that, the standalone version that you already own, you could just keep using that, at least for the foreseeable future. Stephen had a question that goes along with that. Stephen mentioned buying Final Cut Pro really recently, and will Apple, offer like a discount or something like that, or like money back? And probably not, but this is uncharted territory. Apple has never really done this kind of thing. I don't know what the instructions to customer service are, so it probably doesn't hurt to call, right, and say, hey, I just bought this in December. I paid $300 for it. I want to get the Apple Creator Studio subscription. What can be done? And who knows? You may get a good answer from them. Worst case is they say can't do anything for you. Now, if they can't do anything for you, like I said, there's no real need to subscribe to Apple Creator Studio unless you want something else right now. So you can continue to use the version of Final Cut Pro you've got now for the foreseeable future. Maybe that changes at some point, maybe 2 years from now, but that would be like 24 months of usage of Final Cut Pro on your original, one-time purchase. So, think about that. You don't need to rush into anything right now. What are the system requirements? Apple has this other document in addition to the Apple Creator Studio main page. Apple's got this support document 125029, which has lots of little details that people should check out. One of the things it includes is the version numbers for all the new versions of things. So you could see like, oh yeah, pages numbers in Keynote 15.1 Apple Creator Studio. But the older versions are still making available, they're 14.5. So you could see this here. They do have a requirements page or section here. And this is rather interesting. Let me go to it. This is 125029, like I said. And you've got, for Final Cut Pro and most of the things here, you've got 15.6, macOS 15.6 or later. So that goes back quite a ways. This isn't the kind of thing where it's like you need Tahoe to do this. The one exception is Pixelmator Pro. Pixelmator Pro, the new version, does require Tahoe. So that's the only exception. The standalone Pixelmator Pro does not. So if you have the standalone version, you're good if you're on an older version. But yeah, if you go get the subscription and you want the new Pixelmator Pro with Warp, with that Warp feature, you need Tahoe. let's see. Uh, Backwards compatibility. So, are documents created with pages, numbers, and Keynote backwards compatible? And how about the other apps as well? So, backwards compatibility, I have an entire video on that that you should check out where I actually look into things. So, this one right here is Apple Creator Studio backwards compatible. And it's really interesting stuff that I found. For the most part, yes, it is. But it really depends on what you mean by backwards compatibility, because backwards compatibility could mean to people that don't have a subscription, but they have the same version of the app you do, or it could mean to people that have an earlier version of the app, not the latest new version. If they have the same version you do, it seems like Pages, Numbers, and Keynote documents are completely backwards compatible. You can use a new template, a premium template. You can use some Content Hub content, put it into a document and give it to somebody that doesn't have a subscription, and they can use it just fine. They can't do stuff like copy that image out and put it in one of their own documents. And of course, they can't put new Content Hub stuff in there or use any of the new features, but they seem to be able to use it just fine. However, if they have the old version of Pages, like 14.5, they won't be able to open the document if it contains a Content Hub image or a new premium template was used, probably because those have Content Hub images in them. It just gives them a little thing saying can't be opened. However, if you go back and then say you just had one Content Hub image in there, you take it out, save it again, and give it back to them, they can open it. So it's not like a flag that's being set and things are being changed. It just looks through and says, oh, there's a piece of content in here that's not compatible with this older version. So there's that. Um, and I got a question from DSS 358. Will existing documents change, particularly numbers? Like, will opening a numbers document in the newer version mean it can't be opened in an older version now? And the answer is no, unless you use like a Content Hub image or a template that is a premium template. So your regular documents, if you're not going to use Content Hub, not going to use a new template with it, your regular old documents, you can open them up in the new one. And I've tried this. You can go back and open them in the old one, and it works just fine. So there's no like fundamental change to the structure of the document. So that's good news. What about the big apps? Let's go and look here again at the big apps. So Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, and all that. Pixelmator Pro, it seems like you can open up the old stuff. I'm sure if you use Warp, you can't. Um, but I'm pretty sure Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, I mean, you've got the standalone versions now. So the only way to have Final Cut Pro now is if you had the standalone version or have it before. So you can update to the latest version of the standalone version of Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro, which means that it's backwards compatible because they're the same. Apple Creator Studio has the same features as the standalone version. You can go back and forth. It doesn't really apply to compressor, but does apply to motion. And again, no new features that, between standalone and premium. So you shouldn't have any issues there if you're worried about that. But it does bring up the idea of like, what if you get an Apple Creator Studio subscription, use it for say 3 months, and then unsubscribe? Can you still open your documents? And the answer is yes. I've tried that as well. And it's the same thing. Content Hub images from Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, if it's got one in there and you try to open it with the latest version, you're still using 15.1, just you don't subscribe anymore, it opens just fine. Same thing with the template. So it's just you can't use new Content Hub images. You can't access the functions anymore to create new content. But you don't run into a block where now you can't use the document. Um, So I've already talked about, what are the differences between the standalone versions of the 6 apps that have standalone paid versions and the Apple Creator Studio? And the answer is nothing for Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Motion Compressor, and MainStage. They're the same, standalone or the subscription. Pixelmator Pro has the one different, the warp feature, which is also used in the mockup templates. That's only the subscription version. Um, and JC had a question kind of related to that. Will Apple continue to update the big apps, the Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, and Motion Compressor Mainstage, and Pixelmator Pro, the standalone versions? And the answer is we don't know, but we have clues. One big clue is that Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro, the standalone versions, got all the new features with the latest release. So why would Apple do that if they didn't plan on continuing to do that, at least for the time being, right? They would have stopped now. They did do that for Pixelmator Pro. But we're not sure why, because it's just that one feature. So maybe there's something in that one feature that uses, for instance, the latest version of Metal, which is graphics processing, which would be a restriction. If Pixelmator Pro was using the latest version of, say, Metal for Warp, then it would explain why the standalone version doesn't have that. Well, not, it doesn't explain why the standalone version doesn't have it. It explains why you need Tahoe for the new Pixelmator Pro. But it could explain why the standalone version doesn't have that, because they wanted the standalone version to remain backwards compatible to earlier versions of macOS. So there's that. Will they continue to do with this in the future? We don't know. We can only speculate. And certainly they could change their mind. They could maybe not even know now and be waiting to see how things go. But there's no action to take. Right now, if you use Final Cut Pro, for instance, continue using Final Cut Pro, and you've got the same features. If 2 years from now there is a difference, then you can make a decision. But there's no reason to make a decision based on it now. Um, Other people have asked, how about iMovie, GarageBand, and other apps? So they are simply not included in this at all. iMovie is no part of this. GarageBand has no part of this, which makes sense because uh, Final Cut Pro, obviously pro-level video editor, having iMovie be part of this would be kind of confusing. Same thing, Logic Pro and GarageBand. So keeping those out of Creator Studio and just saying these are just base level apps kind of makes sense. Other apps also the same. If it's not one of these 10 apps, it's not involved. So it's just the same, which also brings up another question, Photomator. Photomator is the other product from Pixelmator team where Apple purchased them. They've now obviously incorporated Pixelmator Pro into this, but Photomator is not part of this. Photomator is kind of like an alternative to using photos. It's like library photo management software, kind of. I don't really use it, so I don't have much to say about it. But right now, Apple has said it is still available. Like they made a specific point saying it is still available as a standalone app to download. It's not part of this. What are their plans? Who can say? Um, I know a lot of people that ask me about Adobe Lightroom, old Apple Aperture, and Photomator are saying, well, I need those because Photos doesn't do what I need. Most of the time when I ask them, what do you need? The thing that they need is part of uh, Photos. They just didn't realize that it had been added at some point. So there's that. And then Photos also allows you to edit in external editors. So a lot of the things you may need are basically Photos plus Pixelmator Pro or any other app, Photoshop, Affinity, whatever you can do. So anyway, I won't go more into that. Photomator's still around. That's the point. Next question. What about the iPad? iPad's a little different in that there aren't two versions of each app. Each app was just simply updated. Numbers, Keynote, Pages were simply updated to the new version. That makes things simpler. You can still use them without a subscription. You just don't get Content Hub and the other new features. Most people won't need those. Final Cut Pro, Logic are available for the iPad. They were never not subscription. Well, I think Logic Pro is new, but or maybe it's Pixelmator Pro. Sorry, it's new for the iPad. Final Cut Pro, for instance, was available for the iPad before as a subscription. So it was never standalone. It was always subscription. Now it's part of the Apple Creator Studio subscription. And Apple has said for the time being, if you have a Final Cut Pro subscription, you can just stick with that, that one subscription. But I think new people have to get the Apple Creator Studio subscription. So Content Hub, I've mentioned Content Hub a few times. What Content Hub is you're in Pages, Numbers, or Keynote, and you can click here and say, I want to use Content Hub, and you could bring in clip art, like this. And it's basically like stock photo stuff. So you can bring this in royalty free. But questions are, whenever you go with royalty-free collection, like what is the deal with this? Um, well, Apple's got a page here which spells out all of the terms, and this really gets into it. It's pretty standard. You can republish, retransmit, reproduce, etc. Um, you can't incorporate it into a logo, corporate ID, trademark. You can't do it solely as standalone files. Pretty standard stuff. You can't go and take all the Content Hub stuff and make your own clip art service. You can't do illegal stuff. You can't use it for AI training. I mean, stuff we would expect. They spell out other stuff here. I'm not a lawyer. It looks pretty standard as far as royalty-free stuff. What is kind of weird is like if I were to take this image here, it's in Pages, copy it, and let's go to preview again here, and I'm going to say a new from clipboard. The thing I copied has a watermark on it, which, yeah, I get. The idea is you're supposed to only use this stuff inside of Pages, Numbers, and Keynote documents. But that's just not something you get if you say subscribe to Shutterstock. You would just download the image and you could use it in like your Pages document, and then you could use it in a graphics app to build a promo for the Pages document. There's it's an odd restriction. I can see where they're coming from, but I also don't like it. So there's that document you could read more of. Let's see, what else? Let's see, what are the usage limits for Content Hub images? This is also, or not Content Hub images. What are the usage limits for like the AI stuff? The AI stuff has some limits. Let's take a look here, and it's in this under intelligence features. It does actually spell out usage limits of intelligence features, and basically per month you can generate 50 images, 50 presentations, presenter notes for 700 slides, that kind of thing. So yeah, there are limits like in a lot of the other AI tools, but you have no options to expand on those. So I look at these limits and I say, well, some of the stuff is like ridiculous, like 700 presenter notes and 50 presentations. So you could be a heavy user of Keynote and still not hit that. But generating 50 images, you could hit that just playing around with building a little kids book in Pages or a presentation like that in Keynote. So yeah, kind of a mixed thing there, but you could check out that same support document for that. Freeform. Let's talk about Freeform. We go back here, we see Freeform is included as one of the apps. There's no new version of Freeform. Why? Well, Apple has stated that that's coming. We don't know what that new version will be, but we can speculate that it's just going to have Content Hub and AI-generated images, just like Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. That would make the most sense. Now, whether it has extra stuff like Keynote has, maybe a cleanup feature, we don't know. But that'll be coming, and it will work just like Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. There'll be a the free version of Freeform will just be free with everything we have now, but there'll be like these additional features if you're a subscriber. So we still have to wait for a new version of Keynote. We have a new version of all the 9 other apps. Let's see. So I want to do 2 more questions here, and then I'm going to look at the comments that have been coming in and see if there are any other questions that I can address. These 2 are more opinionated kinds of things. So I get asked all the time, is the subscription worth it? Number 1. And of course, the answer depends. The real value in the subscription is, are the apps, the 6 apps that you get: Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Pixelmator Pro, and then those 3 smaller apps. If you don't have those and now you need them, which is unlikely right now, you would have just had them before, then I think it's a pretty good value. So looking 6 months in the future, when new Final Cut Pro users come online, it's a good value for that. But if you don't use Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, or Pixelmator Pro, or any of those other, the other three apps, if you're just a Pages, Numbers, and Keynote user, it's not a great value. The Content Hub, the AI stuff, that can all be found elsewhere and better quality. And you probably don't need it anyway. If you only needed what Pages, Numbers, and Keynote have always had, or had before, then you don't need an Apple Creator Studio subscription. But the important thing to note is you don't have to rush into any decision now. Just continue to use Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, and don't worry about it. And if you keep running into something where it's like, oh, it'd be nice to have Apple Creator Studio for this, then maybe it becomes worth it for you. But for the most part, Pages, Numbers, and Keynote users don't need the subscription. Final Cut Pro, Logic, Pixelmator Pro users don't need it if you already have the standalone versions for now, but new users coming into those apps will probably benefit just by getting those subscriptions rather than the big price on the standalone versions. What do I recommend if you don't want a subscription? Like, what should you do? Here's what I think you should do if you don't want the subscription. You don't need Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Pixelmator Pro, or you've got the standalone apps and you're not looking to upgrade. Then get the new versions of the apps, get the new versions of Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. Use those new versions. Just simply don't use any of the new features that are there. I've got a video this week on this as well. It's this one right here. How to keep using Pages, Numbers, and Keynote if you don't want Apple Creator Studio. Just keep doing that. Even if you're unsure, there's no rush. Just continue to use them without the subscription. Get the subscription later if you find out you really need it. So that's my big list of questions and some that people had asked before. I do want to look at the comments now and see what other people have it. Here is that video, the No Apple Creator Studio video I was just talking about, by the way. If you want to check that out. Now let's take a look at some of these questions that have come in the meantime. Let's see. I want to make AI videos via Final Cut. Is it possible? No. It doesn't appear to really be any of that AI video creation stuff there. Those are all like these web apps that you use now, and there are a ton of them out there. But that's not something Final Cut Pro is meant for editing your own video, really. And it's got some AI features. And you may actually use Final Cut Pro to take the pieces you create in an AI video generation tool and put them together, but it doesn't generate the AI stuff. Let's see. I think I answered the question about what to do. You've got the two versions. Just keep both versions around for now. Use the new one. If you need to use the old one for some reason, you've got it. And probably in a few months, you'll get rid of it. Get rid of the old one. See, somebody said that they bought a new iPad in November and they got the 3-month trial. So it looks like it kind of is retroactive, like if you bought a recent product. Somebody else mentioned they bought a Mac in December and they don't think they'll get the trial, but it looks like you will. So look into that. See, somebody's saying they want a real Lightroom replacement. I think Photos replaces like everything that you need in most cases now. There's so many new features that have been added over the years to Photos, including editing and an external editor. Probably are some small things that you might need outside. I don't know what those would be, but using Photos plus an image editor of your choice, I would think gets you 90%, 99% of the way there. For most users, 100% of the way there. Has Apple ever given Numbers a big upgrade? Yes, many times. They've done big features like, a couple years ago, they added pivot tables, for instance, which was a big update. They've added all sorts of little features along the way, which would be big to the person waiting for them. And going back even further, Of course, Numbers was an original part of iWork, and it just got upgrade after upgrade after upgrade. Apple continues to, do things with Numbers and, uh, add stuff to it. Um, More power user features. I mean, Magic Fill is the only new feature, and I wouldn't call it power user. I would call it more like making it easier on you. Because if you're a power user, you probably don't need Magic Fill. You could, do without it. Um, but we'll have to see what they come up with, what they add that's new. Do you have to pay extra for voice and sample packages for Logic? I don't know, as I'm not a huge Logic user, but there's no difference between the standalone and the subscription. So doesn't apply here. I imagine, like GarageBand, there are things you can purchase to add more to either one of those. Somebody said they really liked Aperture. I can't imagine. I don't know, like what wouldn't be available to you in Photos plus Pixelmator Pro or another image editing app that was available on Aperture. Certainly, Aperture didn't have iCloud Photos, which is a massive feature for me and the biggest part of the whole Photos app and Apple ecosystem. How much of the apps are free? Like as I mentioned before, and I show in this video, yeah, like everything you had before, it's still free. That's an important thing. Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, everything you had before is free. The only thing behind the paywall are new features. And yeah, somebody mentioned the other video, which is I did before, which is Apple Creator Studio worth it? I try to do this thing where I basically assign points values to things. And yeah, you can watch the video. It helps you decide whether or not you need to get it. But long story short, if you don't have Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro or Pixelmator Pro, then probably yes. If you want them and you don't have them, then probably yes. If you're just Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, then probably no. So check that video out. That one's right here. So you get a basic idea. So yeah, I think we run through a lot of questions here, and the videos I've got here. How to keep using Pages, Numbers, and Keynote if you don't want an Apple Creator Studio. Is Apple Studio backwards compatible, both with people that have the app but no subscription and people that have older versions of the app? And is it worth it? This video here, I think, will answer a lot of other questions. And again, here are the pages I was looking at. The Apple Creator Studio main page at Apple's site. This support document has lots of little details. And the legal document for Content Hub stuff. Check those out if you've got more questions. And if you like my content, consider supporting me at Patreon. Um, Thanks, everybody. You can ask more questions, of course, in comments after the live is done. This will just be a normal video, and I'll have a kind of audio cleaned up version of this available at my site shortly. So thanks for watching.